summit at the highest point, south summit to the right.
We were going to Mount Everest to challenge ourselves, because by challenging yourself, you refine yourself into a better version of you. And so you might be thinking to yourself, well, I don't plan on going to climb Mount Everest soon, so why should we listen to these climbing stories? But if you'll come with me today on an adventurous journey, we'll distill out some lessons from these intense experiences and talk about how you can face uncertainty, how you can overcome challenge, and how you can reach your highest goals. And I've been in enough tough situations in the mountains, and I've been in enough rescues helping to save other folks, where I've noticed that absolutely fear is contagious, but so is confidence. And you want to be the person to try and project some confidence, even in that moment of fear, in that moment of crisis. Amplify resilience when you see it in others. That's what we need to do as resilient leaders, whether we're in a large organization or a small one.
Mount Everest base camp after a deadly avalanche.
That was a huge avalanche and a huge powder blast.
Just harrowing. And joining me now on the phone from Everest is mountain climber Jim Davidson, who's stranded on Mount Everest at this point.
What had happened is just as I reached for the zipper, the earthquake hit us on the glacier. And our tent and the entire glacier shot up into the air about 8 inches. We hovered there for a second, and then the whole thing dropped back down. And we just bobbed up and down, like being in a life raft on the ocean. Here comes the powder blast!
I spoke with Jim Davidson. He's a climber from Fort Collins, Colorado. He survived the earthquake and the avalanche.
But I could see those avalanches where they'd come down. One of them came down 4,000 feet off the west ridge of Everest and had gotten to within 500 yards of our tent. The other one came down 6,000 vertical feet from the 25,000 foot of Nuptse and has stopped about 200 yards from our tent.
Good morning, this is Jim. There goes Fred, up the ladder.
It was gorgeous. We're at 19,900 feet. You can see our tents there, and in the distance some tents of other teams nearby, and these big crevasses going across the glacier. And the day we moved from base camp up here to Camp 1 was April 25th, 2015. And that's the day a 7.8 magnitude earthquake slammed into Nepal.
Holy schmoly. Sounded like it rumbled off Nuptse, but then I thought I heard another one over there, but it's hard to tell. The sound was bouncing around too.
And so I want to talk a little bit about how can you be a resilient team member when things are tough. Maybe the company's crashing, maybe the economy's down, maybe there's earthquakes and avalanches, uncertainty is high, change is being thrust upon you. Really what you're trying to do as a team member is you're trying to spark resilience. Spark resilience in others by being someone to project that confidence. And also, that sparks resilience in you. You see them calm down, and they go, all right, I'll start working on the problem. Whew, I feel a little better. Now they're engaged with the challenge with me. So be the person to spark resilience in your teammates.
Why did you want to climb Everest?
Yeah. I wanted to go there to learn the most I could about myself and my fellow climbers and the human capacity. You know, it's a physical challenge, but it's a mental and spiritual challenge as well. And in this case, we didn't get to test ourselves up high on the summit, but I learned a lot from the people around me.
Beautifully said.
As resilient as you are, too.
Really what you're trying to do as a leader in those moments of crisis or uncertainty or change is what you're trying to do is amplify resilience in others. When you see somebody else having a good idea, well, geez, we got a problem back in the factory, but I guess we could do that. Yes, you put your weight behind them. You amplify their resilience. Give them resources, put them in contact with one of the colleagues in this room. Get behind them.
Jim's resilient teamwork and resilient leadership programs are available as keynotes and workshops.
That's probably one of the best speeches I've ever heard.
I loved your, sort of take change and adapt, take challenge and, move forward and accept. Great stuff.
And you got an unbelievable story.
Well, thank you.
You get me in tears. I don't know how you do it. Oh, so I was moved.
And that was the most compelling and fascinating keynote speech I've heard. I'm still moved. It really was amazing, and you're amazing, and it's an honor to meet you.
Mount Rainier, America.
Because we'd both been climbers for a while, we decided to try a slightly harder route on the north side of Rainier. And I had been climbing about 10 years at this point, but Mike was more experienced. And here's a picture of Mike on that third morning after our second night out. And you can see he's pretty comfy in a sleeping bag, and just beyond his feet is that 2,700 foot drop. And there is a word for this called bivouac. It's a military word, and it means soldiers sleeping in the open. But my wife tells me it means idiots camping in the snow. So. But the most important thing he had was he had resilience. And resilience can mean a couple things. You often hear it used in sports where they say, oh, the team fell behind in the second half, they came back and won in the fourth quarter, they're very resilient, they bounced back, they won. And that's a good first application of resilience. But resilience can go deeper than that. Resilience can also be when you don't succeed, when you lose the game, when you get rained off the mountain. You can look at that experience and extract some knowledge. What did we do wrong? What did the mountain teach us? How can we take that knowledge with us to the next mountain, the next challenge, and apply what we've learned? Now, I'm a full-time speaker and a writer, so I fly around the country speaking to groups like yours. I know many of you flew to get here. I don't know if you've tried to get on the plane carrying one of these. You ought to try carrying 2 of these in your luggage. And it was June 21st, first day of summer, longest, sunniest day of the year. And the sun had sort of been cooking the snow. We made it about 3/4 of the way down. We were about 1 hour from the edge of the glacier, and then things went wrong. Things went very wrong. And I want to show you a short video that was made about this story from I Shouldn't Be Alive, and you'll see what happened as we were descending down Mount Rainier.
It's every mountaineer's worst nightmare. Falling into a hidden crevasse. 80 feet down, where no one can hear your cries. In an epic struggle,
It was just absolute sheer terror.
he must escape before the sun sets, or he'll freeze to death.
I was going to climb until I got out, or until I was dead. Inside the crevasse, it's mostly dark. There's a little bit of blue light because the light refracts through the ice and we only see blue down there. And where Mike and I were in the bottom of the crevasse, there was a snow pile about 2 feet wide and about 6 feet long. And the ice walls were right next to me on my right and left, about 2 feet apart. And way at the top, there was a hole in that ceiling where the light was coming through. And that hole in the ceiling, that way back to the world, that was 80 feet above my head. And there in the darkness, my friend Mike slipped away. My head dropped on his chest. My eyes started filling with tears. I thought, that's it. Mike's gone, and I'm going to be gone soon, too. But I realized I couldn't just quit like that. I was so afraid, and I was so devastated at the loss of my partner, Mike. But I knew I couldn't just give up. Mike had just saved me from the fall. I can't just quit because I'm scared or because it's hard. I thought, if I had 20 ice screws, I knew how to get out of there. Well, this is what 20 ice screws would look like. Nobody carries this much gear. I also needed about 40 carabiners. Nobody carries that many either. So instead of the 20 ice screws, I had about 6. Instead of 40 carabiners, I had about 15. So I'm short on resources, people, time, and I've got a big, big challenge. I think as humans, we're drawn to what we don't have. We think, you know, if I just had more resources, I could do it this way. And if you'd give me an extension of the budget and some more staff, I could do it that way. Try not to get attracted to what you don't have. Think instead about what you do have. What resources do you have? What knowledge do you have? What colleagues do you have that can help you out and figure out to try and start solving the problem with the resources available? And really, I think that's the moment when I found my resilience, when I found my capacity to look inside and ask myself, what drives me? What am I willing to take any fear and any pain for in order to make happen? And that was to get out and see those people back home. And that's when you need to ask yourself about your resilience. Ask yourself where your resilience comes from. How you can get yourself back on your feet and try one more time. That resilience is powerful stuff, whether you're trying to reach a big goal or overcoming a big adversity. Now, you'll probably never wind up in a glacial crevasse, but there are other crevasses in life. Things like illness, bankruptcy, tight economy, and tough competition. Those are the kind of crevasses we all encounter in life. And so this is what I learned by climbing out of that crevasse that you can apply to your crevasses in life. First of all, when you get in a tough situation, you've got to have a resilient mindset. And you have to ask yourself an even more important question. Who will look to me for their resilience? Because the people that work for us, the kids we're leading, they're watching us. Those young climbers I help lead on expeditions, they're watching me. And I have to set a good example. When a challenge or a difficulty happens, do I get mad and just throw my stuff on the ground and stomp away? Should you go back to your office and just slam the door and hide? No. We need to set a good example for them. By being resilient and being a good team member and being a good resilient leader, we teach them how to respond.
Jim's epic story of personal resilience was made into an episode of I Shouldn't Be Alive, and it was shared in Jim's New York Times bestseller, The Ledge.
And if you can do those things, accept, adapt, persevere, and re-engage, that's what builds a resilient mindset for moving forward and taking on those challenges.
Mount Everest, Nepal.
So I went back to Nepal this year in 2017. It's about
8:45 in the morning. We're at 23,000 feet from our teammates coming up.
So instead of being in base camp 4 days, we're in base camp for 6 days, 8 days, 10 days. And after 10 days of sitting in base camp eating the same food and the muscles just coming off you, we begin to lose our minds. We begin to lose our health. And people started getting sick. Our team is getting smaller and we're just wasting away as we sit there. And I thought, well, we need to be tough. We need to persevere. But I realized we can't do anything. The weather's bad. And so this waiting game happened. And I began to think, how can I be perseverant when all I can do is sit around and wait for conditions to change? It's like you might be hunkered down waiting for the economy to change, or hunkered down waiting until that factory gets up and running. You're going to have to hang in there. And that's when I realized patience is a form of perseverance. Patience is passive perseverance. All the things about don't quit and keep going, that's active perseverance. That works a lot of the time, but sometimes you have to be patient. Wait long enough, the weather will clear, we'll get a chance to try and climb. Wait long enough, the economy will improve, you'll get your chance to expand your operations. Well, after 12 days of waiting, we're finally ready to go back for the summit push. And off we went. 36 years as a climber, my second trip to Everest, all this training, all this suffering and conditioning, and it's all going to come down to the next 8 hours. And so we start out incredibly slow. The trick is not to rush up there. The trick is to try and stay in control. And so we push on hour after hour in the darkness. The sky in the east was turning blue. Jupiter and the moon were up on the horizon, and it was just absolutely gorgeous. I realize you get these incredible views, but the time there is very fleeting. So standing on the summit, there's a very small piece of time. It's the journey. It's the process of becoming a good enough partner that you can go beyond. To join a team of incredibly skilled people and know that together you can do something bigger than any of us dare dream alone. It's basically a process of taking those fundamentals, to be driven, to be daring, to care enough to take care of your teammates, to put the team first, to have leaders who will step forward and lead with vision and lead boldly and courageously, even when there are unknowns still hanging. That's how teams tackle big projects. That's how they become more resilient themselves, become more resilient team members, and more resilient leaders. Stay resilient. Thanks for listening.
For booking information, please contact the person who provided this video.
Very good. Thanks, Bob.